Hello, I'm John Collier. I'm a town councillor in Haverfordwest for Castle Ward, and we're here today on the Priory Saltings Nature Reserve. It's a project the town council took on about 3 years ago. It's the site just to the south of the Augustine Priory, opposite Fortune's Frolic Park. If you're familiar with that area, you'll know where we are. It's the site of the former town rubbish dump. The land that we're actually stood on is raised about 3 metres above the high water level and is entirely made up of rubbish from Haverfordwest Town that was put here about 30 years ago. And it's all covered in bramble and turned into a monoculture, which from an environmental point of view isn't probably the best thing as far as habitat value goes. So we looked at the site, realised that it's very close to the town centre. Physically, as a crow flies, it's about 100 yards from the end of Quay Street, but there was no access available to get into it. So we commissioned a small study by a local ecologist to have a look at the ground before we started any real work to make sure we weren't going to disturb any valuable habitats or species, and then implemented a plan over 3 years to re-establish a footpath around the periphery, cut some other footpaths through the middle, but more importantly, build a boardwalk link from the north side into the Priory so that you can get to this site from Haverfordwest Town Centre by foot. So the boardwalk is about an 80-metre length of boardwalk which crosses a very muddy, wet ditch. And it was an obvious place to put the footpath, but we need to get across that wet ditch somehow. We engaged with the local college, who run a countryside management skills course every year, and they were interested in helping us build the boardwalk. We were very lucky to get a £5,000 grant from Southhook LNG Community Fund, which bought the first section of boardwalk and allowed us to create the steps down the embankment. So with Southhook's help and the college, in the first year we built those steps on the embankment and the first section of boardwalk. One of the original thoughts for the project was the route from Clay Lanes and Merlin's Bridge into Haverfordwest. A lot of pedestrians use that route, and they either walk to the top of Union Hill and then walk back down again into Quay Street, which is quite a struggle, or they use the footpath which exists, which crosses Freeman's Way and the railway line, and that is quite a hazardous crossing. We identified that as a potential win for access into the town centre. And I'm very happy to say that as we're filming today, we've seen 3 people and 3 dogs using that route from Merlin's Bridge, Clay Lanes and the Saltings now into Quay Street, instead of having to cross the railway bridge, the railway line and the road. So we want to really enhance the meadow part. That's the next phase of that, is to find some funding to enable us to reseed parts of that meadow area with a proper high quality meadow mix. So we really boost that diversity value for butterflies, bees, and get that pollinator effect that we like to see when we're walking through a meadow.